I have this proud privilege to invite Miss Asma Zaidi. She got her education in Dubai and has been 20 years. She specializes as an early childhood Montessori teacher, a curriculum and teachers trainer, and has conducted hundreds of workshops over the years. Presently, she is Vice Principal of Focus High School and Territory Head of Early Childhood Association, Telangana Territory in Telangana and Jammu and Kashmir. A celebrated author of phonic book Let's Read, a speaker with TED TV Talk, Bacche Hamara Future on Channel When. Kirdar.in is ma'am's initiative on character building and global values to children in an Islamic context. Pursuing her PhD in education from Manav Rachna University, ma'am is also Diploma in Professional Development Center certified in all micro-credentials. May I have the honor to invite Asma Zaidi ma'am for the session. Stage belongs to you, ma'am. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Ma'am, we can't hear you.
Ye audio?
Asma ma'am, now we could hear you. Yeah, again.
You can hear me?
I think probably you'll have to hold
thank
the
you
mic.
so much, Babita ma'am, for the invitation. I don't have the mic anymore. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Babita ma'am, for the invitation and for this opportunity. I always enjoy interacting with a new group and sharing my knowledge with a new cohort who wants to learn. So let's start with further ado. Social emotional learning is one of my favorite subjects to talk about. I feel that we really need to take a control over our emotional development and especially of the children around us, because once we have a sense of what we're doing and how we're feeling, we are able to not only build better relationships, but also enhance our learning. Today, I'm going to share social emotional learning from a very different perspective, from the perspective of neuroscience. So I've recently done a few advanced courses in neuroscience, and I found it very fascinating. It's not earth-shattering new discovery, but it definitely makes more sense. So I'm sure you've seen this before. Social emotional development is all about going from big to small, from concrete towards abstract, from simple to more complex relationships. So the first important thing is knowing about yourself and having self-awareness. And once you have self-awareness, it is important to self-manage, right? You need to cope with those issues. And then once you are able to manage yourself, you develop social awareness for the people who are around you. You're able to tune in, you're able to empathize, you're able to sympathize. And then a person who's socially aware and more tuned to others, you start building relationships. And once you start building relationships and you have a sense of the people's wants and needs, their likes and dislikes, then you become a responsible decision maker. Babita ma'am, is it possible to interact with the students? And because there are very less students, so it's going to be fun.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, completely.
Awesome.
They can raise their hands and yeah, please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So if you would like to switch on your cameras, that's going to be even great. And if not, then just answer my questions. So what do you think are if you are aspiring to be a teacher, then you must have interacted with children at some point, whether it is in your own house or it is outside. So when we talk of self-awareness, children have usually two vocabulary words which are very, very common and used very frequently. Can anybody tell me what those two moods are? Any of the students? Anybody?
Good afternoon. This is Anita here. They often say this is mine or this is me. Everything is centered around themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Some children are egocentric in the early stages of life and they say my and me. But here I'm talking about emotions. Maybe I was not clear. So emotions, which are the two emotions which are most frequently used by students or by children?
Could be happy and sad, the two basic ones.
Absolutely. It is happy and sad. So the children the most frequent words used are happy and sad. मगर इस बेचारे happy और sad के बीच में there are a range of emotions which are unaddressed. And one of the beauty of language that I have discovered through neuroscience it has made more clear. But these are things that we know, but sometimes दिमाग की बत्ती किसी और तरह से जलती है. So when you use words, it is a different kind of empowerment that you feel. For example, मैं आपको एक और random example बता रही हूँ. जैसे you have for a woman who is suffering a lot, okay? She's suffering, maybe she's being beaten up, maybe somebody's calling her names, maybe she's being made to do work which is not suitable for her, okay? If it's a small child, whatever it is. When you use the word abuse, suddenly things become very clear. When you use the word exploitation, suddenly there is an empowerment in that word. So when if somebody starts realizing, oh, I think I'm being exploited, there is a different sense that the whole thing starts making. Yes, this is exploitation. Yes, this is abuse. So I think words make a huge impact on children. So just like that, happy and sad, can somebody quickly give me more words which are used to describe emotions? Can you think of anything quick? देखो बड़े लोगों को words याद नहीं आ रहे. Quickly. Anybody? Happy,
Angry.
sad, Kela.
Angry.
Thank you.
Angry. Scared.
Anybody else?
Scared.
Scared, angry, yes, more.
Excited when they have to go for a birthday party.
Excited, yes, excited. Any other word quickly?
Surprised.
Surprised, yes. Other words?
For the children who are adult, maybe frustrated.
Yes, frustrated. Yes, absolutely. Another word?
Nowadays, very often I'm bored.
Yes, thank you.
2 year is bored. 1 year is bored.
Absolutely
bored.
Yes, bored. Another word that senior citizens feel. Lonely.
Lonely, claustrophobic.
You're lonely, right? That's also a feeling. That's an emotion. Another word. Quickly.
Unwanted.
Unwanted. Yes. Unwanted. Anything else?
I don't know whether it comes into it or not, but anxiety.
Yes, it definitely comes. Anxiety, anxious. Being anxious is a feeling. It's how you identify yourself that you are feeling anxious. Absolutely, yes. Any other word?
The inward stress. Everything is a stress nowadays.
Stressful, yes. You're feeling stressed out. What about tired? Doesn't anybody get tired?
Burnout.
Burnout, tired, fatigued, right? I'm fatigued. So yeah, that's an emotion that you feel. Another word, quickly, last 2-3 words.
Peaceful.
Sorry?
Peaceful, ma'am. At peace.
Peaceful, at peace. Absolutely. You can feel peaceful. That's also a feeling, very rare, magar yeah, it's a feeling.
Grateful. Pandemic has taught us to be that.
Grateful. Oh, yes, absolutely. Who is this person? Very positive.
Anita.
Grateful.
And gratitude
yes.
also, I believe.
Gratitude, yes. Absolutely. Grateful, peaceful, yes. Those are very positive emotions. Anything else?
In the chat box, we have fear, disgust also coming up.
Yes, yes. You have fear and you have disgust and you have hate and you have jealous. Nobody said jealous. Jealous is a very strong feeling, jealousy. Now, once you know how you're feeling, and see for a child, because we're looking at things from a children's perspective, it's very important to make children realize what they are feeling, identify with what they are feeling. That is one aspect. That's just the first step. Once you know how you're feeling, how do you deal with it? For example, a child suddenly realizes that he's jealous. Is it a very nice acknowledgement for a child? It might be a little daunting and maybe even a little embarrassing. When my daughter first realized that she was jealous of her sister, she was so aghast. कि मतलब मैं इतनी गंदी हो सकती हूँ कि मैं jealous हूँ. So that is like, it's a feeling, right? It's natural to have a feeling of jealousy at one point or the other. So knowing what you feel is one step. The second step is to manage how you're feeling. How do you manage jealousy? How do you manage the feeling of anxiety? How do you manage the feeling of anger? When you feel like breaking someone's head, how do you control it? How do you manage yourself? How do you manage fear? How do you manage frustration? How do you, for women, I think a lot of things are learned naturally. I think there is one man here, please excuse me. For women, it's a very natural thing that dheere dheere, once you start getting married, you learn your own tools on how to deal with different kind of emotions. But otherwise, for children especially, how do you manage all these feelings is the second step. And then once you are able to realize these feelings in yourself, then the third step is how you realize, how you acknowledge, and how you take these emotions in another person. So it is important for me to know how I deal with the jealousy of my sister. It is important for me to deal with jealousy of someone, my classmate, right? It's important for me how to handle the anger of my father. How do I deal with it? So becoming socially aware and managing these skills is a huge part of social emotional learning. I think we'll move ahead, otherwise we're going to be stuck here only. It's a huge topic. Social emotional development, there's a lot to talk about and there's a lot to handle, right? So this is what we were talking about right now, that regulating emotions and dealing and coping with emotions. One thing that we didn't talk about is guilt. Guilt is a huge emotion, and it's a very strong emotion with children. What happens when a child is guilty? He broke a glass, he's guilty. Mama ka dupatta jala diya, guilty. Spilled the sugar on the floor, guilty. The ball broke the window, guilty, right? So how do you deal with the guilt is important, right? So this is our brain. This is our brain. And what you see in the front is your prefrontal cortex, and that is your thinking brain. And what you see now behind is your old reptilian brain, okay? And that reptilian brain controls a lot of your emotions. A lot of your instincts are in your old brain, and a lot of your lower order thinking skills are in your old brain. And your logical, analytical skills, your ability to solve problems, make decisions, This is here in the prefrontal cortex, in the brain in front, right? And now you're going to say, what does that have to do with social emotional learning? It has a lot to do with social emotional learning. So tell me, how many of you have had situations where you completely flip? For example, think of a situation where something happened and you froze, or something happened and you ran. You could not face that situation. You run away, you avoid it. Now, run away doesn't mean that you physically run away. Run away can also mean you go into the room and you shut yourself and you avoid it, right? And then of a situation where you lose, जिसे बोलते ना, दिमाग फिर जाना, फिर गई मेरी बोलते हैं ना, and you see a lot in movies where you just lose your flip and you go duk, 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 and you fire and you slaughter everybody that you see. Anybody wants to share those experiences? Anybody? Any experience you want to share? Nobody? Ankita, Ishika, Neha, nobody wants to share anything? You can't think of any situation where you had a similar experience?
Ma'am, once I was studying for my accountancy exam finals, and my brother came in the room. He started to disturb me. So I tried to explain him that this is very important for me. Do not disturb me. Don't irritate me. But he was not listening to me. So I got angry and I slapped him real hard um, my fingerprints were there on his face. So yeah.
Yeah, मगर वो क्या होता है? That happens when you होती हैं जो थोड़ा सोच समझ के होती हैं, right? You were telling him, you were warning him, he didn't listen to you, and then you slapped him. मगर कोई ऐसी चीज बताओ जो बगैर सोचे समझे होती है. Any incident where you do things without thinking, where something happens to you, जो हम कहते हैं ना कि I flip, कुछ मेरा फ्यूज आउट हो गया, वो वाली सिचुएशन है किसी की? Anybody? Anything? Neha?
Yes, ma'am. Like when we've had maybe a bad day at work and we come home and for the most inconsequential reason, the entire balloon bursts, we lose our vent and it comes out on the silliest of reason of something falling down or somebody just saying something loud.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, Anita, thank you for sharing. Yes, so कोई आपके साथ ऐसा इंसिडेंट हुआ है जो सिली चीज पे दिमाग आउट हो गया बिल्कुल?
Yes, somebody just even the maid washing the utensils and making a little noise over it, and I don't know why I just lost my top because I'd had a bad day at work.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So you know what happens in such situations? In such situations, your lower part of your brain, your amygdala, is hijacked. That means the lower part of your brain takes over your thinking brain. So, for example, think of this as your brain, right? This part is your old brain, your reptilian brain. This is the hippocampus, amygdala, and all the old part of the brain. This part is the new brain. And the new brain is over the old brain. So, isko, you can imagine it like this. Whenever you are in a situation where you have to take an immediate decision, your amygdala hijacks your brain and you flip. When you flip, your thinking brain goes behind, not literally, figuratively. Your thinking brain goes behind. It's not able to function anymore. And when your amygdala is flipped, it becomes active and it hijacks the entire functioning of your brain. If you go back to the slide, you will notice that there are certain physical responses which happen to your body when your amygdala is hijacked, for sure. थोड़े लोगों की आंखें लाल हो जाती हैं गुस्से से. You start shaking, you start shivering, you start sweating. Sometimes your face becomes pale as if all the blood is gone, or sometimes it becomes flushed and it becomes red. Has anybody experienced these physical responses to anger or to fear?
Very much so, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So actually it also happens when you're scared. So जिस ज़माने में I don't know if anyone of you have experienced it or not. जिस ज़माने में दिल्ली में बहुत rapes and crimes हो रहे थे, I was traveling alone, and I was in a car and I was traveling alone, and I felt that somebody was following me. And at that time, what happened to my body is something that I've never experienced before. It was so scary. It was, my heart was beating fast. I was sweating. I was trying to think कि कुछ होगा तो मैं क्या करूंगी, कुछ होगा तो मैं क्या करूंगी, मैं किसको phone करूं. But for some people, when you are scared, you are not able to think. They freeze. Has it happened to anybody when you freeze? So some people just freeze. So you have 2-3 kinds of responses when your amygdala hijacks your brain. It is called either the fight response, where you fight, you get into a fight, you bash him up, you give him a tight slap, or flight. That means you run away from that situation. Okay? And there is another response which is called freeze, where you're not able to think, you don't know what to do. Marte to maar do, but I can't move right now. So that is called the freeze response. So when your amygdala hijacks your brain, this is what happens to you. Now, here is the beautiful thing about social emotional learning and neuroscience. Till now, none of you knew. Did you know about amygdala hijack? Did anybody know about amygdala hijack till now?
Yes, ma'am, had attended a session with Dr. Swati. So there we had learned
Okay.
about it.
So, okay, fantastic. So before Dr. Swati session, did you know about amygdala hijack?
No, I just
No.
did.
Ma'am, I read it in my college days, but now, yeah, today I got brushed up. It got
Yeah.
brushed up.
So
And the
when
new
you,
one, ma'am, which I've noticed today only, what is this all about?
fantastic. So whoever at one point amygdala hijack was a new learning for you, whether it was today or it was a few months ago, amygdala hijack, whenever it was a new learning, was a new learning. And when it is a new learning, there is a new understanding of how your brain functions. And with this understanding comes control and coping mechanism that we talked about. So believe it or not, you are able to explain the same thing to small children. And with practice and with constant practice, constant talk about amygdala hijack, constant talk about emotions, you are actually able to control how your body responds to a situation. So think of it like this. Think of soldiers. What happens to them? Does their amygdala get hijacked? Can a soldier afford for his amygdala to get hijacked?
No,
No.
no.
What is going to happen if a soldier freezes?
There is no point of where the job he is doing. If he
Exactly.
cannot do
So
that.
exactly. तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि police officers, firefighters, paramedic staff, आपके army officers, इन लोगों को training दी जाती है so that they are able to control their emotions and control their thinking. They are able to overcome this amygdala hijack. And it is very simple to overcome this amygdala hijack. If you are able to realize the response, the physical response that your body is going through, right? You will be able to overcome this amygdala hijack. So even for children, you can teach this to your children. And when a child starts breathing heavily, he's going to think, oh, amygdala hijack, I need to control this. Whenever your eyes and your blood pressure goes up and it goes ping, you will be able to say, oh, amygdala hijack, I can control this. So with practice, with conscious, mindful thinking, we are able to control amygdala hijack, right? And this is how, this is called, when you flip your lid, this is how you breathe. So everybody, I wish you had your cameras on. Can you breathe with me? Take your hand, fold your thumb inside and inhale and exhale. Exhale. Babita, exhale. Yeah, inhale again. Exhale. Inhale again. Exhale. And trust me, with this simple exercise, whether you teach it to a 4, 5-year-old or a 6, 7-year-old, they will be able to control their amygdala. Okay, simple exercise of breathing. They will be able to say, I can control and bring back my prefrontal cortex and start thinking again. When my amygdala hijacks my brain, I will be able to bring it back and start thinking again. And this kinesthetic activity of bringing the brain back makes all the difference in the world to small children, right? So I hope one thing that we have covered today is amygdala hijack in social emotional learning, how you acknowledge your feeling, how you identify that your amygdala is being hijacked, what happens, what is the physical response that happens to your body, what happens to your breathing, what happens to your temperature, do you start sweating, does your mouth go dry, do your eyes dilate, do they become red, what happens to your ears, do they become hot, sometimes they become hot, your heart starts beating faster, right? Some people with anger or with fear, they start shaking, and for small children, they can even pass urine and when they are very scared. Not just children, I think adults also, right? So this is your physical response to a very traumatic or a very emotional experience, right? But the good news is that everybody, including small children, can be taught to train their brains and can be taught amygdala breathing to gain control over your brain. All right, fantastic. Now, here is the thing that another thing that you need to understand. Whenever we are doing something new, whenever we are changing a behavior, it doesn't happen in one day, right? So, for example, if you are, if your child is, if we are dealing with small children, so if a child hits or a child bites or maybe a child is throwing a tantrum and आपने एक दिन बच्चे को समझाया, नहीं बेटा ऐसा नहीं करते, गंदी बात होती है, you should not bite, you cannot throw a tantrum, जमीन पे लेटना अच्छी बात नहीं होती, गुस्सा करना, सांस रोकना अच्छी बात नहीं होती. तो do you think the next time that episode is going to happen, वो सारा ज्ञान बच्चे को एक दिन में आ जाएगा? Do you think in one day, when we explain something to a child, do they learn things in one day?
No, ma'am. They
Yes.
might, they might not.
They very rarely, very few children who जो एक बारी समझ में आता है, वो इसलिए नहीं क्योंकि वो समझना नहीं चाहते, बल्कि इसलिए क्योंकि ब्रेन का एक प्रोसेस होता है चीजों को सीखने का, चीजों को वो करने का. So the first step is unconscious incompetence. मतलब मुझे मालूम ही नहीं कि मुझे कैसे behave करना. That is the first step. So for a small child, for example, the one who's biting, he doesn't know that biting is wrong and I shouldn't do it. So unconsciously, he is incompetent. He has a wrong intuition. Gussa aaya, bite kar lo, right? That is unconscious incompetence. जब हम उसको बताना शुरू करते हैं, सिखाना शुरू करते हैं, no beta, we don't do this, we are not supposed to bite, your teeth are not for biting people, your teeth are for eating a carrot, your teeth are for biting an apple, your teeth are not for biting your friends, you don't bite your friends. Whenever you explain these things to a children, he understands, but he's not able to implement it. That is the second stage over here, conscious incompetence. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि मुझे मालूम है कि बाइट करना अच्छी बात नहीं होती, मगर मेरे हाथ में नहीं है. आई एम नॉट एबल टू कंट्रोल इट, राइट? सो जब मुझे गुस्सा आता है तो आई फील गिल्टी अबाउट बाइटिंग समबडी, but I can't help myself. I have to bite because that's the only response that I can think of. That is your stage in which I feel a lot of adults are also stuck in. उसके बाद स्टेज आती है कॉन्शियस कॉम्पिटेंस. कॉन्शियस कॉम्पिटेंस क्या होता है? कि I am angry, I want to bite, but I have controlled myself. I have controlled, I want to bite very badly, but I have controlled myself, right? So I did the right thing at the right time. Fourth highest stage with practice जो आती है वो होती है unconscious competence की. That means I am able to control myself without thinking. Without unconsciously, I know that I'm not supposed to bite. I don't have to recall मम्मी ने क्या कहा था, कौन सी गंदी बात होती है, चॉकलेट नहीं मिलेगी, मुझे वो सब चीजों को रिमाइंड करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Now I know that I'm not supposed to bite when I get angry. I have other ways of showing and expressing my anger, right? So these are stages of behavior that not just children, but even adults go through. Would anybody of you like to share or comment or say anything?
Ma'am, I would like to ask something.
Sure.
Can a person flip from one stage to another? Like, for example, अगर एक बार हुआ है कि we are consciously competent, but then there is a situation where we become consciously incompetent.
Yes, हो सकता है, मगर वो stressful situations में होगा.
Yeah.
It happens when your brain is not functioning right. But if you are and conscious competence का मतलब यही होता है ना कि आप पक्का नहीं हुए उस चीज में, अभी भी आपको अपने आप को रिमाइंड करना पड़ता है कि नहीं ये नहीं करते, गंदी बात, चॉकलेट नहीं मिलेगी, मम्मी गुस्सा करेगी, पनिशमेंट मिलेगी. That is conscious competence, when you're still thinking about what you have to do and what is the right way to behave. It is only after constant practice of that positive behavior that you reach a stage of unconscious competence. मतलब where you do the right thing without thinking. That is a natural way to behave. तो अब अगर मुझे गुस्सा आया तो मैं बाइट नहीं करूंगी, मुझे कोई कैरेट की जरूरत नहीं है. I will not bite. I will go and tell my mom, मम्मा वो देखो क्या कर रही है. That is the stage of unconscious competence. And by the way, personally, I feel that a lot of adults also have not reached the stage. So बच्चों की तो हम बहुत बाद में बात करेंगे. बहुत सारे adults हैं जो बहुत सारे मामलों में अभी तक unconscious competence की stage पे behavior wise it needs a lot of mindful conscious practice to reach the stage of unconscious competence. इसमें आप सिर्फ behavior नहीं, आप बहुत सारी चीजों को डाल सकते हो. For example, cycling. एक तो चीज होती है कि मुझे पता ही नहीं कि मुझे साइकिल चलाना नहीं आता, फिर आई एम कॉन्शियसली इनकॉम्पिटेंट, मैं साइकिल ट्राई कर रही हूँ बट मैं गिरती जा रही हूँ, मुझसे चलाया नहीं जा रहा. फिर एक होती है कॉन्शियस कॉम्पिटेंस, जब तक कॉन्सेंट्रेट कर रही हूँ तब तक साइकिल पर हूँ, जब मेरा कॉन्सेंट्रेशन, तुमने मेरा ध्यान इधर उधर कर दिया, मैं गिर गई थड़ बोल के. ठीक है. एंड द फोर्थ स्टेज इज व्हेन यू आर cycling also, talking on the phone also, eating a burger also, drinking water also. That is a stage of unconscious competence where I don't have to think, it becomes a reflex. So it is this stage is not just for behavior, it is for skills also, right? Now we are going to come to a very interesting topic which is about children. And we are going to see whether neuroscience has got anything to do with how children behave. Why are some children less resilient and more reactive than others? Why are some children happy-go-lucky in any environment that they are in? What is the reason behind it? Anybody, any guesses?
I'm Sonia this side. I believe it is the environment of the house which makes a lot of difference actually. They're
Okay.
like happy. One point is that's what I feel always, that what they see, they perceive basically.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, Sonia. But there is, for example, मैं आपको अपना बताती हूँ. I have 3 daughters. Same environment, same parents, same style, same everything. One daughter is happy-go-lucky, doesn't mind anything. Second one gets affected by every little thing that you say. Every little thing. And third wali gets affected but does not say anything and is more mature about her perception of things. But beach wali has no perception. She's highly sensitive. What about those children? Why are some children more reactive, less resilient? Some children are very, very resilient. Any ideas, anybody?
As you said, the topic says the answer itself. It is a neuro-related something where a children have.
Very smart, Sonia.
I believe that is what I could understand about it when your question
Very
has your answer, right?
Very
It has all
smart.
the three question marks are the answers, maybe.
Right,
The
basically.
brain structure, genes, and the social conditioning, the environment.
Right.
Okay, all right. Good try, guys. Very smart. All right. So, yes, and I'll tell you something else. So we'll start with a case study. This is one of my favorite case studies. It's on Netflix, okay? So if you guys have Netflix, go on Netflix and see this. There was a psychological experiment that was done on triplets in 1960s. Okay? And it was done to test whether it is nature or nurture that affects the growth and personality and character of children. And it's a wonderful documentary. And as a third person, it's a wonderful study. As a scientist, as a researcher, it's a wonderful study. But as a human being, it's a little tragic because as a mother and as a human being, it's a little tragic. So in the 1960s, there was this psychologist in America. He was called Peter Naubar, and he did this experiment with a lot of twins and triplets. So what he did was he separated the twins and triplets at birth, and जब वो adoption house में जाते हैं ना, तो adoption agency से they made sure that the twins and triplets went into different houses with different parenting styles. Okay. And now this is the case study of these 3 triplets who are identical. Identical matlab they have come from one egg. Unka ek egg has broken into 3 to form these 3 identical triplets. That means their DNA, their genes, everything is duplicate. They are same to same, identical. Okay, all 3 twins were identical. And the mother was single. They were illegitimate children. They did not have a father. The mother was very, very young, maybe like 17 years old. She got pregnant in college, and then she had triplets, and obviously she could not take care of the triplets. So she gave up the triplets in an adoption agency. And after she gave the triplets in an adoption agency, the adoption agency found 3 families and gave away each of the boys to a different family. So one of the boys went to a lower middle class family and went to a completely different parenting style. Oh, by the way, another thing was common between all these 3 families. All of them had adopted one daughter before. फिर इन्होंने ये दूसरा बच्चा अडॉप्ट किया. This one of the boys. एक lower middle class family, एक highly affluent family with a doctor and a lawyer parents, and one middle class family with middle class values and middle class things. Now, the boys did not know that the other brother existed. Okay, they did not know anything till the children reached college. College mein jaake, when he entered college, the boy who entered college, everybody was calling him from a different name. So he said, I'm not Eddie. My name is John. He said, no, you're Eddie. You're exactly like Eddie. So he said, no, I'm not Eddie. I'm John. And then so the people realized, oh, ye kahin twins to nahi hai. And they brought Eddie and John together. And both the boys were looking at each other and scratching and laughing, and everything was identical. And it became so famous that it came in the newspaper that the twins have found each other after 17 years. And when it came in the newspaper and the newspaper went to different places, they found that there was a third brother. So imagine how amazing it was that the twins found that they had a third brother who was exactly like them. So they became very, very famous. They came on TV shows. The boys found each other. The parents met each other. The boys were exactly the same. They laughed the same. They had the same hair, same eyes, same likes, same dislikes, same type of girlfriends. Everything was same. And then after 4-5 years of meeting each other, one of the boys committed suicide. Okay. And it was such a shock to the other brothers, and a whole different perspective of the experiment came out, that what is it in identical triplets that made one child susceptible to the problems in life that he was not able to deal with. And he actually took such a drastic step as to commit suicide in spite of having two brothers who knew and felt exactly like him. So चलो किसी तीसरे को समझ में नहीं आया, माँ बाप को समझ में नहीं आया, बीवी को समझ में नहीं आया, भाइयों को तो समझ में आता ना what he's going through and what he's feeling. How did he not share what he was feeling and what he was going through with his brothers? So with this unfortunate incident and unfortunate experiment, we came to a very, very important learning. This experiment can be explained through a very, very important learning which was done by scientists in, I think, Netherlands, where they identified groups of children into two categories. One which had the CHRM2 gene, and one category of children who did not have the CHRM2 gene. जिन बच्चों के अंदर CHRM2 जीन होता है, वो एनवायरनमेंट की वजह से कभी-कभी नेगेटिव एक्सपीरियंसेस की वजह से ऑल्टर हो जाता है. And those children are called orchid children. And the children who don't have the CHRM2 gene, they are called the dandelion children. Now, the dandelion children are very resilient children. They are like wildflowers. They grow anywhere. They don't need water. They don't need sunshine. कोई उनको trample करके चला जाए, doesn't matter. फिर से उगाते हैं. कितना भी पानी मिलो, कम मिलो, ज्यादा मिलो, धूप कम है, ज्यादा है, कैसा भी environment है, these dandelions, they grow anywhere. And some children are like dandelions. They thrive anywhere. इसीलिए हमने अपने experiences में देखा है कि चपरासी का बेटा है, खाना पकाने वाली की लड़की है, दूध वाले का बेटा है, becomes an IAS officer, they have so little, but they are hardy, they are resistant children, resilient children. Sometimes children from very low economic backgrounds make it big. They study, they aspire, they have their dreams, they fulfill their dreams. And these children are mostly dandelion children, because orchid children, unless they get the right kind of environment, they will not be able to grow and thrive. Orchid children are like orchid flowers. They need a very delicate balance of nurture of environment to grow and to bloom. The beauty of orchid children is that if the delicate, sensitive child gets the right kind of environment, then he blooms and becomes better than the dandelion child. But he should get that environment where he has the opportunity to bloom and grow and cope and learn coping mechanisms and deal with things and take good from the environment and support to keep the negative away from the child. And if these orchid children do not get the support and the nurturing that they need from the environment, then these children become juvenile delinquents, right? So nurture the environment is very, very important, and the nurture affects children who have the CHRM2 gene. और इसके लिए हम कोई experiment नहीं कर सकते हैं. You cannot get a blood tested to see if the child has CHRM2 gene or not. You can actually, but it's not practical. It's not a practical solution. So there was also a study about the children who had this gene in Wisconsin University, and they found out that all these orchid children, when they grow up and become teenagers, they were the children who were not able to choose any career and often landed up with drugs and other problems. So parenting style, my friend, is an extremely important part of social emotional development, and the physical environment that we provide to the children, the structure, the support, the reassurance, the resilience, the coping mechanisms that we teach the children are very, very important for orchid children to deal with the harshness of the nature that is around them. So like I said, I have a daughter who's an orchid, or I have two daughters who are orchids. Like I have two orchid babies, right? They have grown up, but I am hoping that I have been able to give them enough coping strategies so that they're able to have the confidence to grow and thrive in an environment which is harsh after they grow up. Because after a certain point, orchids have to deal with a world which is harsh and cruel. So in their growing up years, they need that kind of support and that kind of tools which are going to enable them to live in a world which is harsh and cruel, right? So now it's time for you to open your mics and talk to me, please. What does this information tell you about raising children and the kind of settings that we're supposed to have in the school environment? Now that you know about orchids and dandelions, what kind of schools are you going to have? What kind of classrooms are you going to have? What are you going to be careful about? Anybody? Anita, Sonia,
Yeah,
you can give it a try.
Right. Our classroom, actually, I am taking one of the classes. So I always feel first of the comfort zone of the child, where I always feel a child has to make that warmth, a connection with the person, because it's my personal feeling, which I feel academics is something which will be there.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, they will understand. But the first thing what I always feel is that emotional connection with the child, where a child is able to talk to you. So I believe the social emotional, I am very thankful to Babita ma'am also for conducting this type of a course where
Can you have the speaker close to you?
Right. I said where I could connect with the children because we are doing a lot of things according to that in Manav Rachna. If you see our learning areas, we already have all those, but it was very easy for me. Rather, it made me easier for me to connect all my activities related to social emotional. If I talk about a visual art or something where I feel a child is able to express his emotions, dislikes, likes, everything. So environment has to be a congenial environment for me where a child is very open. That's what I can say.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you so
Right,
much.
well
And
done,
yes,
right.
you're absolutely right. The environment has to be very conducive. It has to be very supportive. And all environments are, if you have seen I'm sure in the social emotional learning, you must have read about Maslow's law of hierarchy of needs, right? So one of the most important needs is your sense of belonging and a feeling of being loved. And if these two things are in place along with physiological needs, you are set. These are your 3 thumb rules that you need to know. A, physiological needs of the children are met. They have a sense of belonging to the institution, to a family. Because if children don't belong anywhere, then they try to find a group where they can identify themselves with. So that is why teenagers who don't have a very strong sense of belonging identify with people who allow them into their groups. अब अगर वो drugs वाला group है, gangster वाला group है, ragging वाला group है, और उन्होंने उस teenager को identify कर लिया और अपना बना दिया कि you belong to us, तुम हमारे gang के हो, then that feeling of belonging overpowers everything else. It overpowers your rational thought also, because it's such a strong urge to belong. So children need a very strong sense of belonging in the family also. And if it is not being provided in the family, for example, if the teacher knows that the mother is single, or there are problems going on in the household, or there's something else which is going on in the household, then the child should feel as if the school and the classroom is a space where he belongs. Because if you don't have a sense of belonging, then in your teenage years, you tend to make some very wrong decisions. And this is exactly why teenage girls tend to go towards boyfriends. You tend to have girlfriends. You want to get married. You are so overpowered. You long for that love that you did not get. You love. Actually, it is not love. It is that sense of belonging to someone. That sense of belonging and having, of being important to somebody. That is the most overpowering urge. It is an urge. Like all your other urges, being loved and belonging to someone is a very, very strong urge that should not be taken lightly. इसीलिए अगर आप थोड़ा सा reflect करो ना, तो इसीलिए when we have international schools and big schools with educated teachers and who understand children and child development, you will notice that on their doors, they always have Miss Smita's class. All these children belong to my class. Miss Smita's family, Mrs. Rao ka little ones, Mrs. Anita ki butterflies, Mrs. Sharma ke stars, right? So you put up all those things on the door and you say, all the children of my class, unke naam hum door pe lagate hain. What happens if you forget a name on the door? What happens if you...
Yes, I can share a very wonderful experience which happened with me recently only, because
Please
that
do.
we are having a virtual classes, right? So
Oh,
sorry. We are having a virtual classes, and our virtual classes are like where like only thing is our voice and our noticing of children.
Yeah.
Right now you cannot inform them to show their work. They make it a point. Excuse me, ma'am. Like you have not taken my name. I am there to, I want to show my work to you. So I believe, and when I greet them also, it is one of the gesture which I make it very, very clear is that to taking each and everybody's name at the time.
Yeah.
Because if you say good morning all, it doesn't matter to them. But if I say good morning, Babita ma'am, and good morning, Anita ma'am, and good morning, Asma, it actually gives them a click. Okay, somebody is, we are being recognized and we are there for, somebody is noticing us. So
absolutely.
So there's something.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Sonia. And here I will give you a tip. If you're all teachers, I mean, this is something that I do in my school and I've told my teachers to do. We have written names on ice cream sticks. Okay, we've written names on ice cream sticks. And we tell children that ye ice cream sticks hai. These are the children I will call in the morning circle time song. These are the children I will call for concepts. And these are the children I will call in the bye-bye song. So all children know that their names will be called. हमको खुद नहीं पता कि किसका नाम कब बुलाएंगे, because I've done it with my eyes closed. So we divide the children throughout the class and we say, okay, now when I'm saying the good morning song, I'm going to say, good morning, Anita. Good morning, Neha. So I'm taking out the names of the children. And when I do concepts and I have to ask questions, I'm closing my eyes and picking up this bunch. And I'm saying, yes, Ishika, can you tell me the answer of this question? Yes, Neha, what is going to be this? Yes, Ankita, how are you going to answer this? And when I say bye-bye, the last group is left with me. And I'm going to take everybody's name and say, bye-bye, Sonia. Bye-bye, Anita. So all the children know that they are a part of the class. And if you have a big group, like 30 children in one class, it's not possible to say all 30 together, right? So if you divide it throughout the day, then two things happen. One, the child doesn't know and the teacher doesn't know ki kiska naam kab bulayenge. So they are alert all the time and they are with you all the time. So yes, that is very, very important. And see, for an orchid child, for a sensitive child, for a delicate child, any kind of gesture, any kind of voice, the tone that you are using, the pandemic scare, the people dying in families, all these are making a huge impact on the orchid children of your classrooms. And there are bound to be many orchid children in your class. So one of the things that you need to do as a teacher is to understand how you're going to help children to overcome these anxieties, overcome these fears, overcome these emotions which have settled with them. One of the ways to do it is art, a lot of art, like a lot of expression, a lot of art, a lot of stories about the pandemic maybe. So that is one way to deal with it, right? So I think we are almost, one second. Okay, why is my laptop stuck? One second. Am I done? Okay, I think I have finished my presentation. That's why it wasn't moving. I hope that you were able to get and learn something new from what we did today. Babita ma'am, would you like to share anything?
So thank you, Ms. Asma Zaidi. I mean, it has been as enriching as always. We could see it in your hands movement, in your eyes, when you talk about Ms. Rao's class and Mrs. Dasgupta's butterflies. I think we could see it, that how you live in that ecosystem, in that space the whole day. I have shared a small form on the chat box. So I request our participants to give their inputs there. It's about the overall, the Let's Talk series, that even when on this week we conclude our course, how we can continue the Let's Talk series with that. And any of our participants, if they wish to share something, I think the forum is open for a couple of more minutes. We would like to hear from them. And yeah, so a few more minutes.
Thank you, Asma ma'am. It was really reinforcing what we have been doing. We knew some things in principle, we were doing them, but then you gave a fine tuning to it. Like so far, maybe we were dividing the whole class into few groups, but the fact of doing it unknowingly takes it to a next higher level. So you have certainly scaffolded our thinking. We were thankfully on the right path, but now it's more fine-tuned and polished, and hopefully it'll be able to make a difference into the body of children we try to reach out. So we'll be teaching to the hearts and lesser to the minds.
Good. It's very important. It's very important to touch those little hearts and make a connection, because I think especially early childhood, it's all about relationships. It's all about healthy thinking and relationships. And I think it's inevitable to feel pain. It's inevitable to feel sorrow or guilt or jealousy. The right thing to do is teach children how to cope with it. So how do you cope How do you teach children to cope with pain? How do you teach children to cope with the death? In these COVID times, a lot of things have happened in a lot of families. So I think that space to talk, to share, to deal with things that the children are going through is very important. So more power to all of you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really nice. And one thing which I learned was the orchid child. I'll be actually thinking of that thing when I'll be taking my classes. Like, okay, because there are children who can bloom by themselves, but there are
Yes.
children who needed more support. So this is
Who
something
need a
which
lot
I
of more support. And
Right.
the two things to remember about orchid children is one, अगर सही सपोर्ट नहीं मिला तो बहुत जल्दी ऑफ ट्रैक हो जाते हैं.
Right.
और दूसरी चीज हमें ये ध्यान रखनी है कि अगर हम ऑर्किड चिल्ड्रन को सही सपोर्ट कर सके तो वो डैंडेलाइन से भी अच्छे और खूबसूरत और ज्यादा, दे हैव अ लॉट मोर पोटेंशियल. It just needs that time and space to come out.
Sure.
So a lot of
very
artists,
enriching.
yeah. Thank you,
so
Sonia,
much.
for cooperating and for interacting also. Anita and Sonia both. I enjoyed it.
So,
Our pleasure.
I think there have been a few more participants who have just by their presence enriched being here. So thank you once again, Mrs. Smith.
And thank you, yes. Thank you everybody for
a few
joining.
more sessions with you. And the recording for this session shall be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our Oper course page. So thank you once again. And
Thank you so much.
since kindness matters, let's spread it far and wide. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Please
Bye-bye.
register your responses on the form. I have shared the link on the chat box. Your inputs matter for us to enrich the course. Thank you once again. God bless.
So the form is for students, Babita ma'am?
Ma'am, you can also...
I can also fill it?
Yes. In social emotional learning, we don't deprive of the opportunity.
Okay.
So, thank you. We are closing the meeting officially. So, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone.